Welcome to the Life Poetic with Thomas Keily, your weekly knowledge drop of wordcraft and invocation. This week we're looking at Animal by DiFranco. When you grow up surrounded by willful ignorance, you have to believe that mercy has its own country and that it's round and borderless. And then you have to grow wings and rise above it all, like there, where the hawk is circling above the strip mall. Given it was International Women's Day this week, I wanted to honour one of my favourite female singer-songwriters and lyricists, DiFranco. When I started out as a writer, I used to think of myself as a political writer, so I would address political issues. I would talk about refugee policies or economic policies or discriminations, and I was anchored very much in the politics of an issue, and I was looking at the policy of it and the thinking through justice from a sort of objective right and wrong. And around that time, a friend of mine introduced me to DiFranco, and I listened to it and fell in love with it, and because she was so passionate and singing about the things that mattered to us. But the more I listened to DiFranco and the more I tuned into her lyrics, the more that I realized that even though she was sort of talking about a broad range of issues and all of the issues of the day, deep down and underneath all of that, there was these deep personal stories and these deep emotional connections to the things that she was experiencing and to the injustices of the world. And Ani gives us a really intimate experience of the things that she's fighting against the various tyrannies of the world. And I found that very inspiring, and it really shifted the way I used to think about political writing. And I think it's very powerful to keep bringing it back to the personal. So no matter whether you're talking about gender equality or racial equality or celebration of diversity or just celebrating humans, it's essentially the same battle. We're all humans trying to feel love and to show love and to express ourselves, and we run into all of these obstacles. And deep down, we're fighting and we're yearning, and what we're yearning for is this freedom and love, I think, essentially. And I love this piece in particular, Animal. It's that each verse starts out with a line, "More and more there is this animal inside of me looking out through these eyes." And then it goes on to describe the various things that this animal is seeing. But I find this a really beautiful shift in perspective, because it gets you out of the human mind, out of the socially conditioned mind, and gets you back looking at the world as a human animal. And when you're looking at the world through these eyes, the sort of tyrannies don't make sense, like discrimination and prejudice. None of these things make sense. And when you're looking through a truly human's eyes, you're looking through the eyes of love, and you're looking through the eyes of celebration. And so I think it's a very powerful idea to come back into that, and it's a very honouring idea of what is the fundamental human spirit. And the bits that I really love are in the chorus here, where she says, when you grow up surrounded by willful ignorance. And I feel like this is the willful ignorance it beautifully captures this idea. And when I was in my activist days in Sydney, that you sort of bump up against this a lot, and you can understand it, because people will choose to remain ignorant to an issue, because once you acknowledge an issue, once you recognize something that's going on, the human in you, the compassionate in you, demands action. Like you can't just ignore injustices. The human spirit wants to respond. And so if someone makes you recognize something, they're forcing you into action. And when people feel depleted in their energies, as they do in the world, then people choose to remain ignorant. They choose to, I just don't want to look at this because I just don't have the energy to deal with it. And when you're passionate about an issue, when you're fighting for something, this is heartbreaking. Like, it's one thing to come up against active resistance where there's a particular agenda at play and you can't get past that, and you're fighting for it. But when you come up against this compassion that just refuses to be unlocked, that has this potential but it just refuses to be unlocked, it's heartbreaking, and it's kind of devastating. And so this phrase, willful ignorance, really captures that heartbreak. But then she follows that up with, when you grow up surrounded by willful ignorance, you have to believe that mercy has its own country and that it is round and borderless. And so even though there is this heartbreak of willful ignorance, she still believes that fundamentally there is a country that we can call mercy, that we can call compassion, that we can call generosity. And that country has no limits. It's not cut up in this cookie cutter shape that we've laid over the world. It's inclusive. It's inclusive of the entire human family. And that ideal is powerful, and it's something that we can hold onto and believe in. And so I find this beautiful pairing there of the heartbreak of willful ignorance, but then coming back into the hope that, you know, it is possible, a better world is possible. I've included a link to the songs in the links below, but let's have a look at the chorus one more time. When you grow up surrounded by willful ignorance, you have to believe that mercy has its own country and that it is round and borderless. And then you have to grow wings and rise above it all, like there, where the hawk is circling above the strip mall. This has been the Life Poetic with Thomas Keily. Happy International Women's Day, everyone. See you next week.